بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونستهديه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا فمن يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله ثم أما بعد السلام عليكم and welcome. I'm going to try to get through this class and not be a nervous wreck. Last time that my mother was here and she was, mashallah, taking her shahada and getting married, and my stepfather was here and my niece, I was a nervous wreck. I could barely get through the first part of the class. But tonight, mashallah, I feel more comfortable. I'm also honored at the fact that Sister Sadia Nawwab is also joining me for conversation. Mashallah, it's always enjoyable and enlightening and enriching to be in conversation with her. She brings a lot of different perspectives, a lot of lived experiences and life examples, and I always benefit tremendously. And last but certainly not least, it's good to share this space with all of you. Mashallah, you know, we really don't aim at a unidirectional or even bidirectional flow of energy, information, insights, perspectives, but really kind of a multi-directional flow of information, insights, perspectives. So, you know, she and I are having a conversation directly, but indirectly or secondarily, it's a conversation in which we expect everybody to participate. You know, at any time anyone wants to index something into the conversation, ask a question, share something, raise an objection. I mean, if you want to disagree with me, you'll be wrong, but you can do that. You know what I'm saying? You know, anything you might want to do. So we're still reading this educational poem, Purification of the Heart. And in this book, the author, Imam Maulud, he goes through and he diagnoses different inward conditions. You know, we often hear people using the expression heart work, to do work on your heart, right? To try to get to the root of those things about you, or to try to remove some of that residue that has collected over your heart over the years, and trying to purify your heart, trying to, you know, cleanse your heart so that it becomes a receptacle for divine love. It becomes a receptacle for divine mercy. And so we've gone through, you know, a lot of these different conditions, a lot of these different diseases, and he's very precise. He outlines the disease, he diagnoses it, and then he offers cures. So now we've come to derision, right? Or mockery, to make fun of people. And I think we have to first reflect on the seriousness with which Imam Maulud is treating this. Some of us think that everything is given license in joking, that you can joke about anything. And if somebody takes exception to your joke, it's their fault. And why are you so sensitive? You know, I remember when we were growing up, the worst thing a person could do when we were joking about them was show a sign of being emotionally affected by the joke. Because then we were really, oh man, he getting mad. Now look, he mad now. Oh, look, he mad now. But Imam Maulud is saying, no, if you feel the need to ridicule people, if you feel the need to deride people, if you feel the need to humiliate people, to mock people, there is something corrosive. There is something diseased. There is something sick within your own heart. And this chapter, he's offering us a look at that and then proposing some cures, inshallah. When you hear the term derision, what are some of the first things that come to mind? What are some of your initial impressions?
Listen, every time Amir sends me the chapter, I'm like, I have no idea what that word means. I gotta look it up. I have to read the chapter to understand it. So I relate more to roasting to,
Uh-huh.
ridiculing, mocking, whatever.
Mhm.
And, when I was reading it, I was thinking about, because Jamali, he's into comedy. So he put me up on
He's a
comedy
comedian.
as a sport, as a form of art. Yeah, he's a comedian. And
Jamali is her husband.
yeah, he's right there.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
I really feel like he should have been reflected on this chapter. But no, I mean, I don't know. I just couldn't help but to think about it as like a coping mechanism that I know I run through my head. You know what I mean? Just like the comedy routines. And I'm like, how much of this is kind of healthy and how much of this is like, what does this really say about myself?
Right, right.
Obviously, you don't want to hurt nobody's feeling, but.
Well, generally, the scholars of Islam, everything that is exchanged between two people, it comes back, the basis is hukm al-rida, which in Arabic means as long as no one has taken offense. So we might see two people joking in a way that we could not imagine joking with people. But if they're okay with it, then Islamically it's fine, right?
Mm-hmm.
If somebody says, yo, my nickname is this, and you might take exception to the nickname if you were referred to as that, but this is how they want to be addressed. I remember once, man, I was playing ball with a guy out in University Park at Governor State University. And after the game, I said, man, I'm Will. That's my given name. He said, yeah, I'm Pig. And he was actually short, a little corpulent, a little heavy set. He said, yeah, they call me Pig. I said, you want me to call you Pig? No, you know what I'm saying? I said, you want me to call you Pig? Because I really would prefer not to call you that. Everybody calls me that. So in that exchange, it's not mocking, it's not derisive, because this is how he wants me to address him. Some people roast each other and it's good-natured roasting. They really are not taking offense. You know, Shamar Hemphill and I are very close. I've known Shamar since we were children. Sometimes we roast each other.
Right.
He says things about me, I say things about him. Somebody listening might think, yeah, man, they really going there. They're they're taking shots at each other. But he and I know this is just good-natured joshing. This is just, this is just good-natured banter. If any two people have that and it's understood between them, bihukm al-rida, it's okay. It's okay. We don't even have to understand the dynamics of their friendship and their relationship, right?
And what if you try to take it there with someone and they're not ready for it?
Now, and this is the thing. Where we show maturity and where we show consideration, and I think great humanity, is if we go there and we see that the other person has taken exception, we accept accountability. My fault, man. I probably shouldn't have said that. I thought it was good. I was joking,
right?
But I can tell that you've taken exception to my joking. So I should stop and I should apologize. I took liberties that I had no right to take, because whenever that happens, it's usually us exchanging with someone that we don't know that this is okay with them. We're just assuming that this is okay with them. Right? We're assuming, and it's not safe to, in the Quran, Allah says, وَلَا تَنَابَزُوا بِالْأَلْقَابِ. Allah says, don't address each other by offensive nicknames. Right? Don't do that. Don't assume that's not a problem. No, actually, one of the signs of a healthy kind of communal order is that initially we deal with each other with a little formality. Not like we're at work and it's like, yes, my name is Ubaydullah Evens, and not robotically, but until you give me license to be informal with you. I deal with you with a little formality, right? Some, very self-conscious respect, right? Being very careful not to be offensive, right? Until the ice is broken and maybe, you take a little jab, I take a little jab, and it's like, okay, we like to do that, and it's cool. So like me and Jamali, we take some little jabs. We take some little shots.
Oh my gosh.
Jamali loves to take a jab. And I love to return one. And that's cool. But if you know that somebody is offended by this, don't humiliate them. You know, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam had a particular, peace be upon him, had a particular distaste for people who mocked other people. He didn't like that. He didn't even like practical jokers.
Mhm.
Like people that were practical jokers, right? Unwarranted, right? Unsolicited practical joking. The Prophet didn't like that, right? Once he said about people of like practical joking in Arabic is called sukhriya. Sukhriya is practical joking. He once said about people of extreme sukhriya, he said, on the day of judgment, God will say to them, these people that humiliated people with practical jokes, God will say to them, enter paradise, go into heaven. And as they're approaching heaven, the doors of heaven will shut.
Wow.
And then God will say, no, go back. Now go ahead, go into heaven, go ahead, go into heaven, go ahead. And as they're approaching heaven, the doors will shut. This is how you used to joke with people, playing games to get a rise out of people, to see them alarmed. Now, at the same time, the Prophet embraced good-natured humor, right? He himself even had a sense of humor. You know, once a man came to him, and this is like prophetic joking. A man was, you know, indigent, he was poor, he needed some help. And, you know, at that time, giving somebody money, that was a good way to help them, but giving them livestock that, you know, the livestock, they could milk it, they could, you know, breed it, that was actually even more beneficial to give somebody like livestock, to give them an animal. So a man said, Ya Rasulullah, O Messenger of God, you know what I could really use? A she-camel. And the Prophet said to him, I'm going to give you the child of a she-camel. And he said, what can I do with a baby she-camel? He said, I didn't tell you it was going to be a baby. Everybody is somebody's child, right? Meaning I'm going to give you an adult she-camel, but that too is the child of a she-camel. And the man started laughing. Ah, ha, 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 ha. That's just a good-natured joke, right? Or in the time of the Prophet, there was a man named Nu'man ibn al-Himar, radiyallahu anhu. And Nu'man, he was a joker. He was a joker, right? And there's this one story that one day he was looking at the Prophet, peace be upon him, and he thought, man, I love this guy. I really love him. And the Prophet, his teaching around love, he said, tahadu wa tahabu. Give gifts to one another and you will love one another, right? This is a quick and expedient way of cultivating love between people, is that they give gifts to one another. And it's really the thought of the gift, not so much the material substance of the gift. Person says, you know, I was thinking about you. You know, even if it's just a Reese's cup. You know, I remember I went to visit, you know, Hadia for the first time, my wife, and my mother-in-law had heard that I like Reese's cups. So she had a whole bowl of Reese's cups. Someone told me that you like Reese's. I said, oh, that was great, because I really do like Reese's. Now this might give me diabetes, but I love Reese's, right? Tahadu wa tahabu, give gifts to one another, you will love one another. So Nu'man wanted to give a gift to the Prophet, peace be upon him. The only thing is, he didn't have any money. He was a poor man. So he went to somebody else and he said, the Prophet needs a loan, man. You think you can float him something? And they said, you want me to give it to you? Yeah, give it to me on his behalf. So the person gave money. Nu'man took that money and went and purchased the Prophet a gift. Gave the Prophet the gift. This is for you, O Messenger of God, because I love you. The prophet accepted the gift, and a day later, the prophet gave him a different gift. Gave him a gift in exchange. About 3 weeks later, the man from whom the money was borrowed came to the prophet and said, you know, if you need my PayPal, my routing, no, I'm just kidding. They didn't have that stuff back then.
Right.
But he expressed to him, you know, you don't have to rush, but whenever you get around to paying me, it's fine. And the prophet said, get around to paying you what? I don't owe you any money. And they said, yes, you do. Nu'man, he came to me and told me you needed a loan. I never told him I needed a loan. He said, somebody call Nu'man right now. Nu'man appears before the prophet. Did you borrow money from somebody in my name? Nu'man said, how else do you think I gave you a gift? Remember the gift I gave you? You know, I don't have any money.
Wow.
And the prophet started laughing. And then he said to somebody, pay this man what he's owed. And he just laughed. And they say he laughed heartily. So there's good-natured humor, but mocking somebody, humiliating somebody is different than good-natured humor. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Imam Maulud begins, as for derision, tend to it with the same treatment used for arrogance, and with the knowledge that one's purpose in derision is to humiliate someone. What do you think about that?
I don't know what the cure for arrogance is.
Cure for arrogance is to recall the lowliness of your state, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. Is to think, who am I to put anybody down? Who am I to put anybody down? You know, Imam Ghazali, he said that one of the signs, and I know my mother will say, see there, because this is something we had a few months ago. Imam Ghazali said, one of the signs that a person is making progress spiritually is that they don't deem themselves superior to anybody. That's one of the signs that they're progressing spiritually, mm-hmm. is that they don't see anybody that they think, I'm better than him. He can't tell me nothing. I'm better than her. Mm-hmm. She can't tell me anything, right? And so arrogance is cured by thinking about the humbleness of your state. Who are you? Mm-hmm. What are you? Where do you come from so that you can arrogate yourself in putting somebody else down? Who are you? Mm-hmm. All of us fall short of God's glory. We all have insecurities. We all have weaknesses. We all have baggage. We all have perhaps physical things about which we're self-conscious. Mm-hmm. So why are you talking about this person? Right. Who are you? Right? And this was, you know, what he mentioned as the cure for arrogance.
Mm-hmm. And then also, I guess what I'm thinking about, what I'm reflecting on is humiliating people, but not necessarily in a like mockery way, but just in general, you know?
Yeah.
That's not derision, right?
Well, it depends on what you mean. Like what you mean by humiliating them. Humiliating someone is always bad.
Right. Even
if the goal is to advise them in something that will benefit them spiritually. You know, the saying in Arabic is, an-nasiha amama an-nas fadiha. That giving somebody advice in front of other people is humiliating to them. So if you want to tell me something about me, tell me privately. Don't stand up in front of the entire community, Ustaz Ubaydullah, you should work on your temper. You should be more generous. You shouldn't be so extravagant. You shouldn't, even if you intend to advise me in something that will benefit me, mm-hmm. if you do so in front of people, you will humiliate me, right? Rather, pull me aside, right? You know, request a private conference with me and then tell me, hey man, look, I love you. you're a good brother, and I love being in your company, but this thing with your temper, you got to get that under control, man. Because a simple basketball game and a disagreement about a foul call shouldn't result in that kind of profanity-laced tirade.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody who knows as much about God and his messenger as you. I expect more from you, and I'm watching you, and I'm trying to follow your example. If this sounds too real, it's because it is. Shouldn't I? But when that's said privately, one is given the opportunity to be receptive. When that's said publicly, the only thing the person will be is defensive.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, what you talking about, man? Pull me aside.
Right.
You know, Imam Ghazali, I'm quoting Ghazali a lot tonight, but he said, beware of talking about people, humiliating them in ways that you think are righteous. And then for an example, he says, like when someone's name is mentioned and you shake your head and say, may Allah guide them.
Right.
Right? Somebody's mentioned, may Allah help that brother. He said, if you were really sincere in wanting Allah to help him, you would have been saying that prayer for him in the middle of the night when nobody was looking. You would have been raising your hands in the middle of the night saying, oh Allah, help him. Oh Allah, guide her. But when you say it in front of people, who? Allah help that sister.
Right.
We've all seen that before. Man, may Allah guide the brother. That's not a prayer. That's a put down. That's not a prayer.
Mm-hmm.
You know so-and-so? Yeah, I know him, man. Oh, man, Muslims, man, we have lost our way. May Allah guide us back to the path. No, because this is stuff that's a knowing laugh, Jamali, because this is stuff that we do. And Imam Ghazali said, don't confuse yourself into believing that that's really a prayer, that you really want Allah to guide that person. You really want Allah to improve that person or raise that person. Man, that's an insult. That's all that is an insult. May Allah help the sister.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. He said, yet by doing that, a person actually humiliates himself with God and is recompensed with misfortune. What did you think about that? In doing it, you actually humiliate yourself.
Yeah. I mean, I think that closing line was about how you won't, the idea that you won't live a day without experiencing the thing you were accusing somebody of or whatever. I think it was something about like you're punished with the thing that I can't remember. It's the last line, but it just kind of was having me think about that.
Well, the old saying, and it sounds simplistic, but I found it to be true, is that it takes one to know one.
Yeah.
Right? It takes one to know one. If you recognize certain flaws, certain weaknesses in someone else, it's either because you had those flaws and you've worked to purify yourself of them, or it's because you have those flaws. It takes one to know one, right? Now, the reason why he's mentioning here that you humiliate yourself with God when you do that, because instead of looking at those things in yourself and trying to deal with them, you're looking at those things in someone else and trying to ridicule them. Even though when you stand before God, you're not going to be questioned about what they were.
Right.
You're not going to be questioned about what they did. You're going to be questioned about what you were, what you did. So you humiliate yourself before God, showing more concern about who they are and what they do and what they got going then you are about yourself and God is looking at you.
Right.
You know? And then the last line, he says, and when you do that, you are recompensed with misfortune. That bad befalls a person that ridicules and mocks other people. That's the end of a person that's given to humiliating people and mocking people and speaking derisively to people and putting people down. That is a recipe for a su'ul khatima, for a bad ending for you. And how many people have we've seen that? You spent an entire career making fun of other people. Look how your career ended. You made a profession out of humiliating people. And now you're being humiliated.
Yeah, the person who drew that caricature or whatever of the Prophet ﷺ a few years ago. I don't know if you heard, but he died in a car accident recently.
Subhanallah.
Yeah, like this a few days ago.
Subhanallah.
That was some news that was circulating. I was thinking about that when I was reading this. And I was also trying to think of what are not modern day examples, but like what are examples that come to your mind of this disease besides comedians? Like, how does it show up in the day-to-day life?
When I think about modern examples of this,
because I don't spend my time just roasting people constantly, I may unintentionally embarrass somebody unintentionally, you know what I'm saying? But like,
I think the first thing that came to my mind is people in positions of authority that belittle people, that they feel as though they have authority over. And that this in some way makes them feel important or significant. And sometimes it's subtle, sometimes it's covert, and sometimes it's overt. That some power play, something is done to show everybody in attendance, I'm here and that person is here. Right? That was the first thing that came to my mind. Bad employers. There was a Syrian scholar named Sheikh Kawakibi, 18th century scholar from Syria. He's writing in an 18th century context. And he says that the biggest problem in the majority Muslim world today is an Arabic word called istibdad. Istibdad is like despotism, right? Despotism. That everybody who feels as though anyone is their subordinate will lord over that person in a humiliating and arrogant way. He said, we see mothers doing this to their children.
Yeah.
We see husbands and fathers doing this to their wives and children. We see employers doing this to their employees. And we see the governors doing this to the governed. We see men doing this to women. It was really it was an amazing insight, because what I took from that is he's kind of looking at oppression through this spiritual lens. And I thought, we often capture one part of the oppression. So when we see husbands doing it to wives, we say it's domestic violence. If we see men doing it to women, we say it's misogyny. If we see white people doing it to Black people, we say it's racism. If we see rich people doing it to poor people, we say it's classism, right? If we see people that are educated doing it to people that are uneducated, we say it's elitism. But what Sheikh Kawakibi was saying, no, it's the same disease refracted through different lenses. It's the same disease. And I thought that was an amazing insight. And that was one of the first things that I thought about when reading this chapter. This need to feel that you're over someone, and that resulting in a desire to humiliate them. in a desire to mock them. You know what I'm saying? I grew up roasting people.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, I could cook. I'm coming to get you. I was that person. I'm talking about when I entered the school, it's on and popping, baby. All day, from first period to last period, all day. I'm talking in high school. I mean, we would, no lie. No lie. This is no lie. We would pick on somebody. We would draw like an offensive picture of them, like a caricature of them. And then we would diagram it, buck teeth, nappy hair, grass stains on the jeans, dirty socks. Put it on his locker. Somebody would ask to go to the bathroom. We would stick it on his locker. During passing period, everybody would be crowded around the picture laughing. He would walk up and get angry, snatch it down. We're sitting watching this rolling. Let's go. Once he really got angry, he turned. We would be sitting there pumping our fists. Let's go. Let's go. The next period, he would get me. But I knew I had to be cool about it. I'd just walk up, that was a good one, that was a good one, that was a good one. That was a good one, that was a good one. Right? We grew up just talking about each other. And even though I would hear adults say things like, people who don't feel good about themselves do that. I would just reject that. Like, nah, man, we just, have a, but no, actually it was true. I think it was partly true. I mean, what need is there to treat somebody like that? If you feel good about who you are and where you are, you'd want somebody to be where you are. But if you feel bad about where you are, then you want to mock somebody else. You want to deride someone else so they can also feel a share of what you feel. When you're in a good place, I want other people to experience this, man. This is a good place that I'm in, man. I feel good. I want you to experience that too. But if I'm in a bad place, misery loves company.
Yeah.
How can I get you to taste some of this that I feel? And for me, because maybe I come to school, I'm dark-skinned. Back then, people would talk about people that were dark-skinned. So I had to live with some insecurity. I have to make you live with some insecurity. I'm insecure about the fact that I'm dark-skinned. You're going to be insecure about the fact that you can't keep up with the latest fashions. You're going to be insecure about the fact that we all know, we would get personal. Yeah. It would get crazy.
You feel bad about it now?
A little bit.
Yeah.
At that time, all's fair in love and war, but it was when I think not just looking at my personal role in it, but looking at the whole enterprise. I think we were children in a lot of pain. You know what I'm saying? Looking at the whole enterprise. And I think this was one of the ways we expressed that pain.
And you coped with it.
That we cope with that pain. Just cracking on guys until they got angry and try. Why would you want to see somebody like that? That's not cool, man. But we would keep that thing going. But I remember having that done to me. Well, you remember that? Oh, Mac and Marcus' house, they cousins, Kevin and Corey. They were talking about me and I was young and I was crying. I said, Mom, come pick me up. And from there, I said, what? I'm going on the offensive. I'm going to be talking about people now. You heard, man. You heard. So here, Imam Maulud said what? By seeing it as your place to humiliate someone else, you have humiliated yourself with God. And this is a much more important audience.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you can embarrass that person in front of some other people. You say some jokes about them and everybody laughs. And they're humiliated, they're hurt, they're embarrassed. But you have just embarrassed yourself before the angels.
Mm-hmm.
You have embarrassed yourself before God. What's worse? Who's really getting the last laugh? Them or you?
So what do you think about like, professional roasts or even shows like Wildin' Out, like just engaging in, in being entertained by them? Like, what do you think about that?
I think,
and that's a real question for me because again, in our family, like comedy is a real part of our life. I think,
as I was mentioning at the beginning, بالحكم الرضا, if everybody is okay with it, people can joke to whatever level they want to,
right,
as long as everybody is okay. This is not me just extrapolating. This is in our books of fiqh. بالحكم الرضا, if everybody is okay with it, this is just kind of how we roast each other. And it's cool. I don't take any exception to it. You don't take any exception to it. That's cool. In fact, some people say that kind of good-natured joking with your ahibba, with your beloved, with the people you love, that's actually a sign of the love. That we can joke like that with each other and there is nothing important being misplaced.
Mm-hmm.
That I don't for a scintilla of a moment think that you really have something against me,
mm-hmm,
or that you really think something bad about me. This is just a way that we joke, right? This is just a way that we joke, right? I remember, so Kanoya Ali.
Mm-hmm. Uh-oh.
Beautiful brother, good friend of mine. One day he needed to talk to me. And I said, well, I'm going to Michigan City, to the outlet out at Michigan City. You can just ride with me. We can talk, as we ride. I went out to Michigan City and I didn't see anything that I wanted, but I bought a pair of socks. Man, he never let me hear the end of that.
Yes.
Man, this dude drove for an hour and 15 minutes to buy a pair of socks, man. What kind of guy does that, man? This guy drove for an hour and 15 minutes for a pair of socks, man. Who does that, man? I mean, sometimes he would just see me, a pair of socks.
We got to get him on the lineup.
Yeah, a pair of socks, bro. A pair of socks. We would be like in serious Islamic gatherings. Socks. You drove an hour and 15 minutes. You had me out there for some socks, man. I would laugh and he would laugh.
Wait, you took him with you?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't go out there for socks, man.
Right, I know.
But that's all I saw was socks. But for him, this just became the joke that never ended. Just talking about how extravagant and how frivolous, and but it was a good-natured exchange. I didn't take exception to it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I would buzz back at him and he didn't take exception to it. It was a sign of our friendship. That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. But if I took exception to that, like maybe if I had some insecurity about superficiality,
mm-hmm.
and he said socks, and I was embarrassed by that. Come on, Ali, man. Come on, man. Imam Maulud is saying maturity is in his being able to accept that. Okay, I'm a cool out, man. I see that you've taken exception to that.
Mm-hmm.
I'll stop. And so for me, derision becomes toxic when we're unable to stop. And sometimes it's really addictive.
Mm-hmm.
You get on a roll, everybody's laughing. And the worst is when you pretend like you're gonna stop. No, that's it, man. That's it. No, but it's like, man, no, just stop. Let it go. Let it go. Something that he didn't mention, but I have some experience with, is I think you even have to be very careful in gatherings with other brothers, other sisters, even how boisterously you laugh. Some people can laugh in a way that's just, it's over the top, right? When somebody says a little joke about you, the joke didn't make you mad.
Right.
But you look at somebody else and they sitting there, oh man. Oh. That little last part just drives me crazy. When the person hits you with the, they hit you with the, I can't. I'm dead, bro. I say, man, wait, I mean, it was a little joke, but don't you think you're taking this a little far?
That's funny.
Right? That can be a form of derision. You're laughing at my expense too much. He made the joke didn't offend me, but the way you're laughing is offending me. You know what I'm saying? So being able to say that, bro, all right, man, cool out.
Yeah.
I think we have to carry each other with that kind of consideration. He ends by saying, also treat it by knowing the severe warning that has come. In Sahih Muslim, the book of Hadith, the statements of the Prophet, about showing contempt for any Muslim. The Prophet ﷺ said in an authentic hadith, to hold another believer in contempt is fisk. It's misguidance. Like there's something in you that is not properly aligned. If you really hold this brother or sister in like contempt, for two people to recognize that, we're good with cordiality, that's maturity.
Right.
Maybe two people recognize, we probably wouldn't be the best of friends.
Right.
That happens. But if you hold somebody in such strict contempt that you can't even greet them warmly,
right,
that you make faces when you see them, that's misguidance. That's not over something petty, over something small, that is not justifiable. The Prophet ﷺ said, two Muslims have some issue and it's taffy, it's small between them. It's not like someone abused someone else or something small. You offended me, you slighted me. They see each other and they turn away from each other, not speaking to each other for 3 days. They see each other, I ain't got nothing to say to you, you ain't got nothing to say to me. He said, after the 3rd day, they both become sinful. This is silly. And he said, the better of the two is the one that initiates the reconciliation. Hey, man, this is silly. This is silly, bro, this is silly. Whatever I did, I apologize, man. Right? So that no resentment develops, no contempt develops, right? That it's a form of misguidance to hold your sister in contempt. I can't stand her. Really? Somebody that worships God like you do at whatever level they do. Somebody struggling to be like you're struggling to be. You can't stand them? Really? It's better just to say, al-arwah junud al-mujannada. Souls are, some souls are close and aligned and some souls are not.
Right.
That's cool. That's mature. Some people are naturally, they gravitate toward each other. Some people, not so much. That's cool. One of the most beautiful traditions there's a statement, and it's not a hadith, but it's an old adage. Al-arwah junud al-mujannada. That souls are like conscripted soldiers. That souls فما ائتلف منها فما اعترف منها ائتلف وما تناقض منها اختلف. Souls that just naturally have a familiarity between them. They just find each other in this world. You know how you talk to people, it's like, I feel like I've known you my whole life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you can have some people, we've worked together for years, and the relationship has never really moved beyond, hey, how you doing? It's just how it is. One of the beautiful traditions of some of my teachers is whenever they encountered a person that they didn't just get on with very naturally, they would just say, you know, souls are, some souls just naturally gravitate toward each other and others don't.
Mm-hmm.
But they would never like say anything offensive about that person, or like I hold them in contempt. Now, some people we got a natural kind of rhythm. Some people you don't. Some people you meet them, it's like, that chemistry is not there.
Mm-hmm.
Other people you meet them, that chemistry is instant. Yes. Well, everything you say is categorically correct. But no, yeah, that could be it too. Maybe you see that person and you see something in them that, you recognize in you, and this produces the aversion. Right? But my point is, even if a person feels that doesn't have to be contempt. That can just be a recognition that, okay, all right, so, another brother, another sister, maybe we won't be going to any White Sox games together or something like that, but good brother, it's okay. It's a good sister. We may not ever go to lunch together, but it's cool. I'm saying that does not arrive to contempt, somebody that I can't stand them. They make me sick. Just seeing them angers me. When people start talking like that, you got to know that's something in you.
Mm.
They make me sick. Just hearing their laughter just irritates me. It's like, what is that? You know what I'm saying? What is that? That's something in you. That's not any. That's what the Prophet ﷺ is talking about. That, karahatuhu, to like hold a Muslim in contempt, to hate him, to hate her. And I hate her. Whoa.
Do you feel like it's only applied to Muslims? Because I feel like if you feel that way about anybody,
mm-hmm.
It still shows something in you.
Yeah, I think these hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, I think he speaks to the Muslim community because he's speaking in the Muslim community.
Right.
Does not mean that it doesn't apply to people generally.
Okay.
Right? It's almost like when talking to, say, a husband and a wife, and you're talking about kindness, but you're talking about it in the context of marriage. So you're talking about kindness to your wife,
mm-hmm.
kindness to your husband. That does not negate kindness to everybody else. I'm just speaking to the particular context in which I find the people I'm addressing.
Right.
So I think the Prophet ﷺ will often speak about behavioral standards as Muslims because he's speaking to the Muslim community.
Right, that makes sense.
But it's applicable to everybody.
Right, because it's just their character as a person.
Because it's character. Right, it's applicable to everybody. But the direct, it's not like, I don't hold Muslims in contempt, but I hold everybody else in contempt.
Right.
You know what I mean? The person is Muslim, well, we might not get on well, but he's okay. But his cousin,
right,
that hasn't taken Shahada, oh, he's a slime ball. He's a jerk. Him, he's a jerk too, but he's Muslim, so I guess I can't say that. No, it's not. It's something that it's an ease in your character that refrains from harsh judgment of other people.
Right.
Even if you recognize, I want to steer clear of this person, and I might not want to be very close to this person, but I refrain from harsh judgment of other people. That's where they are. That's who they are. It's cool. I might not ever befriend them, but it's cool. Right? I don't hold them in contempt.
Mm-hmm.
I don't judge them harshly.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Amir, is it time for Q&A? بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين وآخر دعوانا and alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. So we'll stop there. We'll open the floor for questions, comments, ideas, clarifications, insights.
Any questions?
Yeah, right there.
I have more of, I guess, a comment / question. Oh, sorry. So I think I have more of a comment / question. So one of the things I've observed is the culture that I come from in South India, or maybe even my family, extended family. There's just a common culture of sort of throwing jabs at each other. And I don't think it was until I actually had family come sort of marry into our family that we realized that everybody needed a sensitivity training because it's a completely different spectrum. And so it goes to your point.
Yeah, and I think that sometimes you'll find that if people understand that this is not intended as offense, this is not intended as derision. This is really just intended as just good-natured joking. They can become more comfortable in the setting. But initially, the defenses might be really high if they're unaccustomed to that. You know, me and my sister, we joke about each other all the time. Yeah, Zayd, I'm talking about your mother. Talking about your mom. Yeah, you can tell your mother I was talking about your mom. Me and my sister joke about each other all the time. But I've never taken exception to it. And I don't think that she does it. It's just, some people are like that, right? Now, my wife, she'll hear us joking and say, Ubay, stop. Because different culture. Ubay, stop. Me and Portia always joke like that. It's no big deal. So sometimes, you know, someone that isn't privy to kind of that culture will be made uncomfortable. You know what I'm saying?
Person added on Instagram, what if that person has done something shady? Or is this in the same context of the first impression?
Done something shady.
Um,
Like, can you hold them in contempt?
Yeah.
I mean, لا يحب الله جهر بالسوء إلا لمن ظلم. Allah Ta'ala says Allah does not like that a person articulate contempt for anyone except the person that has been wronged. إلا لمن ظلم. إلا من ظلم. Excuse me. Except the person that has been wronged. What scholars say about this is that it is a natural human reaction to being wronged, to articulate contempt for the person who wronged you. That's a natural human reaction. That's a natural human reaction, right? What we're talking, but the word zulim in the ayah refers to more than slights, and we're not talking about, when you say a person did something shady, we don't mean like they failed to like my Instagram post. We don't mean like, you know, I think one of the most difficult things to kind of separate in this discussion, what are just those little slights, those little agitations like that, and what are like, this person abused me in some way. You know what I'm saying? This person, you know, offended me in a grave and serious way. And, you know, it was some kind of misunderstanding or something to which I took exception, or, you know, right? And we have to find a way of gaining some perspective so that this doesn't become that, right? We have to find a way of gaining some perspective, right? Everything can't be grave, serious, unforgivable. Men dhulem and a dhulemtu. He didn't invite me to the party. It can't be, everything can't be like that. at the same time, some things are like that. You know what I'm saying? So when you say did something shady, that's too ambiguous. If you mean did something shady, like I invited this person to my home for dinner and they stole something out of my home, that is much more serious than, you know, I was driving down the street, I saw this person, I said salam alaikum as I was going 115 miles per hour, and I didn't hear them say wa alaikum salam. I can't stand that dude. Like, hey man, you going 115 miles per hour. Maybe he said it and you didn't hear him. Nah, man, he think he better than me anyway. You were going 100 miles per hour, Sheikh. If he would have heard it, I would have said it. If he would have said it, I would have heard it. That's, you know, we being petty now, man. We being petty now. That's petty stuff. But big stuff has a different ruling, right? Illa min dhulam, right? Big stuff has a different ruling.
Bismillah, assalamu alaikum.
Why you salam?
So
You know, you answer. Let's.
I get that all the time. What I was gonna say. Early on, you always talking about comedy in the conversation, and you gave a very specific answer with two people talking to each other, and kind of if no offense is taken between them, then the boundaries are different, so to speak. Or is that correct?
No, I'm laughing because I was thinking about something. Go ahead.
Okay, alhamdulillah. I want to twist up the point, but my question is in regards to if it's more than just two people. So in regards to like a comedian or somebody giving insight or joke or whatever it is, if they don't intend harm, but obviously you're talking to a group of people at this point, you know what I mean? If you don't intend harm, what is kind of like the rule or the measuring stick in regards to something like that?
The reason I started,
because you tell jokes in your settings, but it may be people that you have an understanding with.
The reason I started laughing is that a couple years ago at the Black Muslim Psychology Conference, Moses the Comet, who's a Muslim comedian, started roasting me. Right. Now I was the keynote speaker for the address, and I was sitting at the front table, and he started going in. And the thing about the table, it was a round table, but it appeared as though I had my back to him. And he said, "Man, who this head looking like a milk dud?" He started going in.
I heard about that.
Yeah, he started going in, and I turned around. He man looked like a broke Tyrese. Now me, I'm from the old school. You never let them see you sweat. So I'm laughing more hysterically than everybody else. It's cool. He started telling some other jokes. My wife took exception to what he was saying and stood up, stopped. It got like, she took exception to what he was saying. And that ain't, it had switched. It had switched. That's my man. Don't talk about my man. And I was like, it ain't no problem, baby. It's just, it's just jokes, baby. It's just jokes. It ain't no problem. But what I realized in that setting about this particular question is that when a person attends a comedy showcase or, a comedian set, I think it's understood that this could happen, right? This is a part of, salam alaikum. Salam alaikum. This is your mom. We know this is he looking like, man, this is my mom. You sitting up here talking, that's my dad, man. You sit up here talking, we know, man. We know, Habibi, we know. But I think it's understood that I think it's become such a pervasive part of the culture of stand-up comedy. And what I explained, because I had to go on stage and address what happened, right? And I said that this brother stands here and does his comedy to make his living, and to entertain us with a trust that we understand that he's not trying to be offensive, and that he understands that if we've taken offense, he's skillful and talented enough to begin going in a different direction. I think this is because, again, if you're a comedian, you might test the waters. You might test the waters. You know, I see you sitting in the front row. I got to call you Drizzy. I got to call you Drake. I got to go in and see how where that's going to go. I got to see where that's going. If it looked like you've taken it in a good natured way, I might want to double down on that bit a little bit. Started from the bottom, now we here. But if I see that you haven't taken that in a good natured way, that you really looking at me like, come on, man. Don't compare me to an emo rapper, man. Oh no. Don't play with me like that, man. I have to be mature enough to be like, okay, let me go over here to this brother here, man. You know what I'm saying? Not the right one. And I often ask, Muslim comedians, if you want to, start going in on an audience member during your set, do you, because it wasn't just me. I'm talking about he was going in on everybody. It was some sisters sitting together. He said, Real Housewives of Mecca. He was going in on everybody. And it was funny to me. It was funny to me. But, again, the hukm al-rida, you have to know that they're okay with it, right? And here, the ruling is that you are judged on the basis of your sincerity, even if you're wrong. So let's say I'm not present, but you start saying some jokes about me, and you legitimately and sincerely believed he would be okay. If he were here, this would not offend him. Me and Ubay, we've joked like this in the past. This would not offend him, man. Then you say, you're not sinful. Now, if you learn, somebody that was present comes to me and I say, Jamali, I didn't appreciate that, bro. Being big enough to apologize and not do it again. But in that moment, if you really sincerely thought, he wouldn't mind this, man. Really, he would not mind this. But the same measure for backbite. If you're talking about somebody and you really sincerely believe he would not mind this, if he were present, he wouldn't mind what I'm saying. You're not sinful in what you said, if you really believe that, but you're judged on the basis of that sincerity. On the other hand, if you're saying, I would say it if he was here, that's not the mi'yar. That's front biting. You know what I'm saying? I would say it if he was standing right here, I'd say the same thing. The standard, the criterion is if he were here, if she were here, would this be something that offends her? If it is, you can't say it. You can't say it in their absence. Not, I say it if he could be standing right here with Channel 7 News. I would have said the same thing. That makes no difference, right? So if you're joking about me, I'm not present, and or you sincerely believe this wouldn't offend him, then it's cool. Yes, sir. Wa alaikum salam. Oh,
I think I'm gonna excuse myself.
okay, bismillah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Bismillah.
If you want. If you'll go.
Assalamu alaikum.
If you don't want to go.
So I actually have 2 comments, 2 questions. So when you were talking about how what you say has an impact even on your own self, reminded me of how you show people your true character. So even though you've just told them something you think is important to joke about, they may not even go home with that. They may not carry it. It might not stick to them, but what sticks to them is knowing that you're not a person they can trust anymore.
Yeah.
And then when the brother was asking his question, it reminded me of something I saw recently. A woman was talking about the comments we make about other people when in public, whether it be posting it on social media public or just in a public setting, that especially when it has to do with the person's physical self, that even if they seemed okay with what you said, there's somebody else in the crowd who has that also, who is now taken offense and now knows that that's not okay. That's something to laugh about, my height, my size, anything, you know?
Wow. You know what? You're taking it much deeper than anything I've seen in traditional books. And I think it's because they're dealing with mostly person-to-person interaction. Not thinking though, that I might say to you something that you don't find offensive at all, but somebody else who sees themselves as embodying the same characteristic might be offended by that. Wow.
And then my two questions. So when it came up about today's comedians, as a millennial, my generation is all about like self-deprecating humor.
Sure.
And just wondering how that falls into this, if that at all falls into it. And then the other question of when you were talking about people who are in positions of power, who ridicule others or belittle them, or, you know, how do you deal with people like that? Is it okay to, I guess, I don't know, like call them out on it, do it back to them? Like, how do you handle that?
Bismillah.
And also on that note, when you have, you know, a character like Trump, who was such a, you know, like a fuel for comedians, like, you know, is that okay? You know what I'm saying? Not that is it okay, but I don't know.
Yeah, Bismillah. Wow, those are difficult questions. As for the first question about self-deprecating humor, you know, self-deprecation is dangerous. On the one hand, you know, some good-hearted joking about yourself, which indicates that you don't take yourself too seriously, right? Which indicates that you recognize that you can be as irrational, as silly, as vain, as petty as anybody else. I think this is good for kind of self-actualization and balance, to recognize I can be as, you know, right? Where it can cross the line is when you start to talk about yourself in a way that would appear ungrateful for the blessings that God has given you, right? If you talk about yourself to such an extent that, like, things that you should be thanking God for, you're talking about them as though they are things that should be subject to ridicule. How can you balance that with gratitude? Right? So if I'm making fun of my height, for instance, right? At what point does that cross over into being ungrateful for the fact that I'm healthy? Like, I'm healthy, I'm well. At what point is it like, how can I be grateful about something and ridicule it at the same time? So I think with self-deprecation, you just want to be careful not to cross the line into ingratitude, right? Because if you start talking about, I mean, I've heard people engage, and I've engaged self-deprecation to the point that it's almost like I've stood on stages talking about the problems of Azhar. And I can, man, look, if you know anything about institutions in the Muslim world, man, I can have everybody in here in stitches talking about Azhar University and the problems with it, the dysfunctionalities of Azhar. But at the end of the day, God blessed me to be a graduate of that institution. And I'm honored through my association with that institution. I can't joke about it to the point that I'm almost pretending as though I don't recognize that it's a blessing. You know, I can joke about it and talk about its problems and, at Azhar, they help you to embrace the sunnah. Because if you try to get a paper filed and you're clean shaven, by the time it's filed, you'll have a beard. That's how long it takes to get anything done at Azhar. You understand? It's almost like, Azhar, that was it. But that's my alma mater. I went to school there. So am I going to joke about it to the point that it becomes almost worthless to me? So that I can't say, alhamdulillah, praise be to God. God blessed me to attend school there, to graduate from there. I'm thankful for that. So just don't let self-deprecation become ingratitude, right? What was the second question? Oh, subhanAllah. There's different approaches to that. I don't think there's a one size fits all way of dealing with that. You have some people like Sayyidina Ali, Ibn Abi Talib, Karamallahu wajh, may Allah ennoble him and beautify him. Sayyidina Ali said, if somebody is arrogant, if I encounter an arrogant person, that person will not find anybody more arrogant than me. Meaning the way that he remedied that is that I deal with an arrogant person with arrogance. But you had to look at, he was the leader of the Muslim community, and he had a position to do that. I think he's saying that from a place that if you want to behave arrogantly with somebody, then I will use my status to behave arrogant towards you. If that dynamic is not in place, the person does not end up corrected because they were belittled. They end up inflamed and they become even more kind of arrogant. So I think you can treat a person with arrogance if there's something that suggests that this would be effective. It's almost like if I see one of my children being rude or harsh to another of my children, I can remedy that by saying, now what if I treated you like that? Because I have a position, there's a positional difference that I can say that. Najashi, if you're talking to Makita like that, what if I talk to you like that? The way that you're older than her, more capable, bigger, I'm older than you, more capable, bigger. Do you like it? No, you don't like it. She doesn't like it. There can be a lesson in that, right? On the other hand, if it's more of a peer-to-peer, it's not positional, or there's some setting in which this person is perceived as having a position over me, like my employer, I find that it's best to level with them. It's best to level with them and give them the space to come clean about their insecurity, man. It's like, we all recognize that you founded the business. We all recognize that you are the CEO. The only thing that happens when you talk to people like that is that it creates aversion and distance, and we reconsider, why are we even working here? And if you continue with this, you run the risk of losing your workforce. You really, really need to slow down, man. You really, really need to cool out, right? That might work. Another strategy is getting someone that they do respect to intercede. Like, you can't hear it from me, right? If I tell you, you can't hear it from me. But if somebody else that you do respect tells you, maybe you can hear it from them. It's like, yo, get your boy, man. Get your boy. He's been watching The Godfather too much. No, he's been watching The Godfather too much.
Okay, Michael.
He really thinks he's Michael Corleone, man. And this is just a hot dog stand. He comes to work at the hot dog stand. Everybody listen to me. We need to take care of the customers. You say, come on, man. Stop. Somebody talk to the man, man. Somebody talk to this man, because this man is crazy. So, different ways of approaching. Right, different ways of approaching.
Assalamu alaikum. My first question is, in a lot of cultures that have embraced Islam, like the brother from South India said, or South Asia, I'm sorry, said, we use a lot of joking to also convey truth in the household and with our loved ones and even with the Muslim community. And then in the United States, we have somewhat of a dilemma in terms of doublespeak or not getting to the point, right? So how do we navigate, these like dualities, right? Because we were kind of sandwiched in where we want to convey truth as much as possible, but we don't want to do it in a brash way. And we also don't want to create this issue where we can't address issues properly, right?
Bismillah, that's a very good question. I mean, generally speaking, people in positions of public authority have always been, I'm just saying, now we're just talking about de facto, not de jure, not by the Sharia. People in positions of public authority have always been mocked and ridiculed by people. I mean, it's something that comes with the territory. Right. You know, if you don't want to be mocked, ridiculed, if you don't want people to speak in jest about you, then you probably shouldn't become the governor. Like when Lori Lightfoot looks around and sees how people ridicule her, she had to know that came with the job. Like that comes with the job, man. Just, you know, I mean, I'm not talking now I'm not speaking from a place of like religious law. I'm just saying practically, like what happened to Trump, or that happens. In terms of conveying truth through joking, that's also an effective way, you know, especially in settings in which people have deep commitments to each other. Sometimes, you know, a joke might be much more effective at getting to a serious point than, you know, a tete-a-tete, like a heart-to-heart, right? So if somebody said to my son, imitate your father. Show us your father. What does he do? He pretends like he has a phone.
That's bad. Well, not bad, but you
But,
know,
but
like,
and my wife and his siblings, they're all laughing. And I was a little bit like, no, they said, come on, man. Come, it's not like that, man. You're going way too far, kid. It's not like that, man. But he was actually telling me the truth of how he feels that I'm inattentive through his joking. Then they said, show us your mother. He started yelling. You know, he was showing her the truth. This is what he thinks. He's showing through his joking. And I see that as kind of like a substitute, an effective substitute for saying, Dad, pay closer attention to me. Mom, try to be, you know, try to regulate, you know, a bit, you know, your kind of emotionality when dealing with me, etc. Alhamdulillah. That's actually, I think, a very effective way sometimes of helping people to see different things that might be tense or uncomfortable if we addressed it directly. So I think that's just a brilliant way of dealing with those issues sometimes.
My last question is in regards to the sister's question about self-deprecation. And I was wondering in terms of like fiqh or like jurisdiction, would it fall under self-harm or self-mutilization or any type of ruling like that? Because the self is beyond the physical.
Of course.
Right.
Of course. Usually in fiqh, or just kind of more so, not so fiqh, but kind of ruhaniyat, like the spiritual teaching, they talk about is kufran and ni'mah, ingratitude for blessing. You know, if you really, because when you talk about yourself, you have to remember you're talking about God's blessing. If you really think that, you know, like one of my favorite sayings. Never say, hey, look at me, I'm a big deal. But at the same time, because that could be arrogance, don't say I'm nothing. That's not piety. Man, I'm nothing. You think God made you nothing? Everything that God has given you, all of the blessings you enjoy, all of the talents that you have, all of the beauty that you possess, and you would say, I'm nothing. And you think that there's some righteousness in that I'm showing my humility and say, man, I'm nothing. No, that's ingratitude. God did not make you nothing. God has given you a great deal. And this is why they say, don't say I'm something, don't say I'm nothing, just say Allah. Don't say I'm something, don't say I'm nothing, just say Allah. People praise you, don't say, man, you're really, I am that. It's like, you're really, you notice, huh? I see you notice that, huh? At the same time, you don't have to disavow your blessings. You're a really well-spoken guy. No, I'm not, I'm nothing. Just say, alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah.
They talked about that in the chapter about when the prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, entered Mecca, and how like in his victory, he was not boisterous and,
wasn't vainglorious and, look at me. That's actually one of the great signs of a man or woman of God is in a time of victory, in a time of triumph, you remember God. Because those are the times in which self-indulgence just beckons to you. Everybody is praising you, all of this adulation, the nafs just wants to go. It's true.
There's a lot of examples like that in Quran.
Of course, it's
The
true.
people of the garden.
If you want to say it's true, it's true. But in those moments when you can say, all praise is for God, man. It's from Allah. People say, man, you did this, it's from Allah. It's from Allah. I'm just thankful. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر سبحان رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.